Marhaba, and welcome to the Matrix Green Pill, where real people connect.
Hello and welcome to the Matrix Green Pill podcast. I am Namita Thakkar and today I am excited to welcome our podcast guest of the week, Trevor Waugh. The artist sees what the others only catch a glimpse of is proved true by Trevor, internationally renowned and highly regarded British fine artist whose work and style bring light and life to his chosen subjects. His topics are diverse and genres include portrait, landscape, street scenes, and scenes from the Middle East. In addition, he is also a published author of top-selling titles teaching you about the beauty of watercolors and painting. So, without further ado, let's hear from Trevor himself about his love and passion for art. Trevor, welcome and thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you, Namita. It's great to be invited and look forward to this interview.
Same here. So, Trevor, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself? How and when did you discover this passion for art?
Yeah, I mean, it started way back before I was born, apparently, according to my mother. She prayed that baby would be an artist, and I came along and I fulfilled that role, I guess. My earliest recollection is knowing that I could paint, and I did so in nursery and won some prizes, which brought me a lot of attention. So I thought, in my childish way, I thought, oh, this is the thing that I'm going to do, really, because it brings you lots of attention. So, yeah, that's how I started, really.
I'm sure with age, your work has evolved over time. So can you tell us a bit about that? How did the art and your work evolve over the years?
Yeah, I mean, it has evolved. Some things have stayed the same since I was very, very small. My love of recording three-dimensional things. That is the trick of making a two-dimensional surface look three-dimensional. I mean, I love that. And shadow and light, of course, has always been my quest ever since I was really young. It was born into me from an early days. Those are my two main criteria that haven't really moved. What has moved is the way that I do things, the way that I see things, the way that I see the world. I guess that through going through art college and learning technique and learning from masters, etc., in my later years, I've been able to sort of throw that away and just go for expression, go for really putting parts of me into the painting, what I personally feel about the things that I'm looking at in nature.
Trevor, it's said that the artist doesn't paint using his hands, but rather with his imagination, his thoughts. What inspires you while creating your artwork?
Product of looking at things in nature and then, if you like, fantasizing or imagining how you would like it to be when you record them. Of course, eliminating certain things is important. I do believe, after all my years of painting, no artist paints what they see. We paint a selection, and in terms of nature, it's a selection from nature that we think we'd like others to see. It's a marriage between imagining, which I was always daydreaming, and in fact I got into trouble for daydreaming quite often. Quite often I'd be imagining what things look like, and also scribbling things on the side of my books, scribbling cartoons of my teachers and things like that. So for me it was all play.
I'm sure you got into big trouble for doing that.
Big trouble, but I think they were so impressed by the way that I was doing it. It lessened the trouble that I got into. They realised that I was going to be an artist, and so they left me very much to it.
Amazing. Okay. Can you tell us about a particularly meaningful or challenging piece of art you have worked on?
Yeah, this might come as a surprise, because painting comes as a natural thing for me. It's an everyday breathing in and out. It's food for my soul. I was once doing this portrait, and this is a strange event. I was doing a portrait, and it was one of the best portraits I think I'd ever painted. And then I rushed, and I wanted to get it varnished for the client. It wasn't quite dry. It was a kind of bittersweet thing that happened. I put the varnish on, and the painting underneath started to melt, some kind of alchemic. It was like some alchemical concoction. It just all started to morph in front of my eyes. I know, it was just awful. And it was such a lovely painting, even I admired it, that it was that one that got away. Like fishermen say, that was the fish that got away. And that was the fish that got away. But in lots of ways, it challenged me to redo it and do it as good. Challenged myself to not a second-hand job. from it. So to do an even better one, which I did. So it was a great challenge at the same time it was a great failure.
Right. Great learning.
Yeah, great learning curve. Yeah, painting's a learning curve every day.
What do you hope your viewers or art lovers take away from your art?
They see beyond the surface of things. You truly can see beyond the surface of things if you try hard. And I know that studying nature most of my life and looking, nature starts to reveal its secrets to you if you spend enough time doing that. So I'm hoping that people can see that in my work. I'm hoping that people can see some of the secrets that have been bestowed upon me in my painting. Painting is supposed to reveal things. So if my painting's revealing anything, it's revealing the beauty of nature's secrets, I guess.
Right. Amazing. What are your thoughts on the role of art in today's society and its impact on the culture and community?
They used to say in the old days, when I was growing up, video and photographs were born, and therefore art was dead. It proved to be not the case. It proved very much to be alive, and there were new ways and new means to express oneself without the use of mechanical instruments. But these days, technology plays a great part with art in tandem with it for it to be self-sustainable. It grows with us. It's part of our heritage. It's part of every culture's heritage. So cultures and interconnecting cultures survive as a result of those things. My fervent hope is that technology won't replace art. I don't think it ever can.
No, it cannot. I'm sure it cannot. I mean, there's a different beauty in doing it with your hands. I don't think technology can take away that skill from humans.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big philosophical question for the arts around the world. There's a big pool of resources, and like-minded people from every culture, I've noticed.
What advice would you offer, Trevor, to aspiring artists or those who are just starting out their careers in this field?
My advice to struggling artists who changed since I was a struggling artist, you have to keep going. And this thing called self-belief, it's not easy to have it when you haven't got it. And when people say you've got to believe in yourself, it takes a lot more than that. It takes support of the people around you. It takes a self-belief. It takes an attitude of, I'm going to carry on no matter what. There's that spirit which human beings have, which they're going to carry on even against the odds. So that's what I did, and it seems to pay off, but I'm still struggling.
Always learning. That's what the journey is all about. Trevor, throughout your journey as an artist till now, or which piece of art has been your most favorite or your biggest inspiration, and why?
That's incredible. And that is a question that's been asked many, many times of different artists. And I'm going to quote here, if you'll let me, okay? This question of Picasso said, which is your favourite piece of art that you've ever done? And he said, and I'm going to say it, and he said, the next one, which is a lovely surprise.
It is. Wow. That's so optimistic as well.
It's optimistic. I mean, I do believe in optimism. I think we're here once and we've got to be optimistic. We don't have choice.
Yes, well said, especially in today's day and age. I mean, if you're not optimistic, there's nothing to life.
You can't keep relying on the past to fuel your future. I'm always up first thing in the morning. I'm always ready to go. I'm always ready to see what today brings. And there's no other subject other than painting that's ever fascinated me as much, and for my whole life. So it never stops giving to me.
That's really incredible. Trevor, you're also an art teacher. So has there been any student who has particularly stood out or inspired you in a way? And could you share that experience with us?
Yeah, there have been several and on different levels. Let's start with one that you might understand. I mean, I had the chance when I came to Dubai about 10 years ago. That's not when I came to Dubai. I had a chance around about 10 years ago to work with some special needs artists. And in that group of special needs artists, there was an artist called Victor Sigali, who's still practicing, from Zambia. And he was profoundly deaf and he couldn't speak either. So I had to learn American Sign Language to be able to tell him how to paint. And he chose me out of many artists he could have chosen. And I felt that was a great privilege. So he's been an inspiration to me because it is possible to be an artist and be a great artist of merit without any of the other senses having to be employed, including sight. vision. Lots of people I know now are blind and they paint really, really incredibly well. That was one. I mean, another one is just recently a young girl who came to me via her parents, and her parents said, could you see if she's got any artistic merit? And she came from a very technical background with her brothers and mum and dad. I showed her some very complex thing that I was doing the day that she came to me, and she went into my back studio and I set her up with a canvas, and she took to it like a duck to water, as they say. She just came out and it was an amazing painting that she'd done, and she's been great ever since. I mean, she didn't know and she'd never been taught anything. Amazing. She never ever showed apparently any sign that she had that genius in her, you know, and it was quite shocking, more than surprising. It was a shock to see it. And now she's gone on under my tuition to, you know, make it her full-time job. You know, as a youngster, she's still struggling, but she's going to be a talent in the art world, I hope.
Amazing, Trevor. That's wonderful.
Well, it's a great privilege to be able to teach people, you know, and have them carry the baton, if you like, further than you could have done. It's a great honour to share with them what I know and have them share it with somebody else. That's how it perpetuates.
So, Trevor, one last question before we move on to the next segment. That's about your book, The Emeralds Through the Eyes of an Artist, which won you the Artist of the Year in the Middle East. Can you tell us a bit more about that and what is the book all about?
Yeah, I mean, the whole idea of these things, I've got to say to younger listeners here who might not know this, that we don't plan things. They just happen in front of us. And it's a serendipity, if you like, career. And a book, I never set out to be an author, but apparently if you write a book, that's what you become. You become an author by default. You've written a book. So it's a great honour to do that. The Emirates Through the Eyes of an Artist, it started life as my journal. I keep journals all the time. They're painted journals, and they're recorded live, if you like, with my paintbrush wherever I go. So, you know, my Arabian sketchbook has got 10 years worth of paintings in it. I have my sketchbook, or journals as I call them, because they also include words, so descriptions of things, and sometimes just colour notes for me. I like to keep them. They're like diaries, visual diaries for me. The book basically came out of that. Somebody in the publishing company called Motivate in Dubai, and I think it was somebody who came to me whose parents owned some of my paintings, and he looked at the journals and said, would like to publish this. So I found myself flying out for a breakfast meeting with people in Motivate Publishing and trying to come up with the idea. And I said I'd like it to be as much like the journals as it could be. I think they did a good job. In the meantime, what happened with that is it got shelved a little bit for a year, I guess because they weren't going to produce that many, or there wasn't a market for that many. And then HSBC, the World Bank, came along and saw that they were looking for something that they could publish as a 60th anniversary of trading in the Middle East. And they saw my journal. And then it went a little bit like a Harry Potter for art books. So we were all trying to cope with that because they wanted sort of 40, 50,000 copies overnight. And HSBC were largely responsible for making the whole thing happen. And then, of course, as a result of that, they voted me, you know, Artist of the Year of Middle East. So I was greatly honoured by both things. And of course, that book went on to be a bestseller when it hit the streets as well. Had an Arabic, it was translated into Arabic and English, and there was a preface, you know. It was, the whole journey with that one was fantastic. And I didn't know that it was maybe the first thing that happened by an Englishman. First one that was done by an Englishman. I didn't know that until much later. But then word gets around, you know. I think everybody on the HSBC client or investor list got one posted to them. So on that list of names, there were some very notable names around the world, obviously, notwithstanding the ones that are royal. So I think they all received copies of that book. So my work got known through the very thing that I kept private, which was my journal.
That's amazing. What an achievement.
I don't know who came up with the title. I think we came up with the title jointly. You know, I wanted to call it Through the Eyes, but that was a little vague. So we had to get the Emirates in there because my journals cover the whole of the Emirates, including Oman as well. Finally, we came up with the title, The Emirates Through the Eyes of an Artist.
Brilliant. Very, very interesting name. That's so good.
And I'm very proud of it too. I'm very proud of that book. I think it's an old world book and a heritage book, I believe, and encourage everybody to go out and get a copy. You might have one passed on to you.
Very interesting, Trevor. And with that, we have come to the segment of a show which we call Rapid Fire. It's our version of a game show. As the name suggests, I'm going to ask you some questions and you just have to answer what comes first on your mind.
Yes, thanks, Namita.
All right, let's go for it. So, Trevor, what's your favorite or most creative time of day?
It's a really good question. Nothing's changed really since I was at art college. Spend most of the morning, and I hope I'm answering this correctly, thinking about things, studying things, discussing things, pacing up and down if you have to. And then I think mostly the most creative part is just before lunch and into the early afternoon. And if I'm in Arabia, then it's around about 4 o'clock. I would go out and look at the lake. Basically, the most interesting time for me and the most creative time is to see the light and paint it, whatever time of day that might be.
Who is your role model, Trevor?
Wow, so many. Of course, my teachers, I love and adored them. They're no longer with me. They've gone to the great exhibition in the sky, as they say. And I will join them one day, I'm sure. One of my first recollections is of a teacher at school who believed in me so greatly. He would fight for me, fight for my rights. So his name was Stuart Lang. You know, it was great to have that support and somebody I greatly admired. In history, I guess one of my favourite artists of all time is John Singer Sargent. And I think he influenced the whole nation and the whole world, especially in the world of watercolour. So, you know, if you're painting in watercolour, anybody out there who's listening to this is painting watercolour, you can't do any harm by looking at beautiful John Singer Sargent watercolour and just being amazed by the way he managed to capture light. There have been many, Picasso, Sorolla from Spain, and of course the Renaissance painters. I mean, I love the Renaissance, you know, and what it did for mankind and the culture. I hope I've answered that clearly.
So the last one is your favorite saying or your favorite quote.
Here's a little known one. And this refers to the encouragement that you should give young artists when they're failing. I came across it by accident and it really made my heart jump and sing when I was going through a down moment. It's this: observe the postage stamp. Its usefulness depends upon its ability to stick to one thing until it gets there. It's kind of encouraging in a small way.
Of course it is. And before we wrap up, we would like to ask you about your green pill moment. Could you share an inspiring or life-changing experience that you have gone through?
Yeah, there's been lots of them. I'm going to name a list, if you don't mind.
Please go ahead.
One thing was seeing the Hajar Mountains for the first time in the distance. And I noticed they were pink and blue from a distance. And it was shockingly brilliant. The colours were just so amazing, it took my breath away. It was one simple thing. And of course, I painted them many times. The colours blue and pink, you know, feature in my imagination quite a lot. My agent was there at the time. She sadly passed away now, Alison Collins, who used to own the Majlis Gallery. She was with me and she asked me the question, as you're asking me, what are you looking at? She said. And I said, I'm looking at the mountains. She went, yes. So am I, but what are you seeing? So I'm not. And I said, they're pink and blue. And she said to me, do you know, I've never seen that before. You're correct. They are. That was one revelation. Another one, of course, is the revelation of, for everybody, is letting go. We've all had loved ones that have passed away, and I don't want to end on that note. It takes quite a lot of time for us to let go of them. And I think that bereavement is a hard thing. I think in this modern day illness, mental illness and bereavement is not looked at as much. A revelation to say this, okay? When my mother passed away, it was very, very difficult for me. Really difficult. I went through a crisis of self that I can't really explain how bad it was. And it was deep. It took a long time, 8 years. But finally, it does come to one that you should let go. And finally, when I did that, of course, everything returned. That was a life-changing experience. But it is for everyone. Not easy, but then no one said it would be.
Yes, absolutely correct. Absolutely. You're right.
Let me just end on the fact that music is the salvation. It really is. So along with painting, of course, I'm a musician. You know, I grew up in London in the swinging 60s, so I became a bit of a musician as well. So music has always been there, and it's always been a bit of a salvation for me. So that's a revelation. Life-changing experience to be a musician.
Nice. Thank you so much, Trevor, for your time here with us and for really sharing your fantastic journey as an artist. I'm sure our audience is going to love this and enjoy this conversation as much as I have. Before we say goodbye, Trevor, could you tell our listeners where they can find and follow you?
Yes, they can find me on, obviously, Facebook and the social networks. Instagram, I post daily on Instagram because it's very visual. And a lot of my supporters and fan club, if you want to call it that, they pick up with me personally on Instagram. But social networks, yes, I'm always on that. And of course, my website is trevorwaugh.com. So if you want to find out about me, my biography or anything, it's simple trevorwaugh.com and up will come the website.
Sure, we're going to put all the links on our show notes as well for our listeners. Thank you so much for joining us and wish you all the very best.
Welcome. Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been a pleasure.
If you enjoy our conversations, please like and subscribe. See you next Wednesday.